Well, a very good day to you. It's lovely to have you join us again, and we're going to be continuing today our series on the book of James. If you haven't tuned in before, today we're actually looking at part 4 of the book of James, and we have been going through chapter 1, and we're going to be beginning today from verse 9. I'm actually reading and using the Passion Translation because I do like the way Brian Simmons puts the scriptures together, his words, his expression, it all actually really lives. And I think it's quite a good contemporary look at some of the scriptures that we all know and love. So let's look together at James chapter 1, reading from verse 9. The believer who is poor still has reasons to boast, for he has been placed on high. Verse 10 says, but those who are rich should boast in how God has brought them low and humbled them, for all their earthly glory will one day fade away, like a wild flower in the meadow. For as the scorching heat of the sun causes the petals of the wildflower to fall off and lose its appearance of beauty, so the rich in the midst of their pursuit of wealth will wither away. Verse 12, if your faith remains strong, even when surrounded by life's difficulties, you will continue to pursue the untold blessings of God. True happiness comes as you pass the test with faith and receive the victorious crown of life promised to every lover of God. In this section of verses, the Apostle James was addressing the issue of discrimination against the poor in the church. What was happening was the rich people were coming into the assembly or the church, and they were given the best seats and they were given preferential treatment. Whereas the poor, well, they were given what has become known as the cheap seats. We see this in James chapter 2, verses 1 to 9, which we'll be covering in another section. And James is saying to the readers of the book of James, he's saying this, hey, financial abundance is not always an indication of spiritual blessing. Finances do give you options. However, in fact, even King Solomon said in Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 19, he said, money answers everything. However, just like the scorching sun, which we get plenty of here in Brisbane, wilts the beauty of a wildflower, so the rich themselves will fade and wilt away one day. Let's look at verse 12. In James chapter 1, verse 12, James reminds us that life difficulties will come to us all. Don't ever feel that coming to Christ or becoming a follower of Christ means that you won't have any difficulties in this life at all. James makes it very clear and that we will have difficulties, and he challenges us and he says, come on everyone, remain strong in your faith, because that is the only way to experience God's untold blessings. This is, of course, a personal decision that we have to make before God. Here's a great thought though. Your tests and your trials are given to you so you can dig deep and experience all the blessings that God has for you. James says this is our true happiness. The reason your faith is tested today is so you can pass the test. Do you know God has pre-designed your test and given you everything you need in this life so you can actually pass the test? Let's look at the words of 2 Peter chapter 1 and verse 3, and again from the Passion Translation. Everything we could ever need for life and complete devotion to God has already been deposited in us by His divine power. Did you catch that? Everything has already been deposited in you by His divine power. For all this was lavished upon us through the rich experience of knowing Him who has called us by name and invited us to come to Him through a glorious manifestation of His goodness. Every test and every trial you go through is designed not to destroy you, but to bless you, to build you, and to encourage you. In fact, the words of Isaiah 43 which say this, I think I've touched on this before, but if I can just touch on it again, when you pass through the waters, you will not be drowned, and when you pass through the fires, you will not be burned. The waters are designed by God. Those deep waters are designed by Him to cleanse you and not to drown you. And the fire that you go through is never intended to burn you, but to cleanse you. I really hope you've enjoyed tuning in today and looking at part 4 on the book of James. There's going to be plenty more coming, so keep your eyes on that Facebook page and you'll see the posts coming through regularly. God bless you. Have an awesome week.